Well, welcome to the 700 Club. A Christian governor in the world's largest Muslim nation is on trial for blasphemy, resulting from him claiming the Quran doesn't require you to vote for a Muslim. His case is being seen as a test of Indonesia's commitment to religious tolerance.
And while Christians support Basuki Purnama when he says he never intended to attack Islam's holy book, many Muslims are outraged. Gary Lane brings us the story.
On the first day of his blasphemy trial, Jakarta Governor Basuki Purnama, also known by his nickname Ahok, said he never intended to offend Muslims or Islam.
I never intended to insult Muslims or insult the clergy. On that basis, I plead with the judges to consider my exception plea.
The blasphemy accusations stem from statements Purnama made while campaigning several months ago. If found guilty, he could spend 5 years in prison. Appointed by the Indonesian president, Purnama is Jakarta's first ethnic Chinese governor and first non-Muslim to serve in the office in more than half a century. CBN Indonesia director Mark McClendon told us, Purnama isn't your typical politician.
He is a very transparent man, very open, very honest man. He says what he thinks. He's being forthright, and people love that about him.
McClendon says he's gained respect by stamping out corruption and could be freely elected as governor next year.
Over the last 3 years of him being vice governor and then governor, people have felt a dramatic change come over the city.
This September's campaign appearance led to the blasphemy charges. At that time, Purnama said his opponents were lying by saying the Quran prohibits voters from supporting non-Muslims.
Nobody was there filed a police report. It was somebody else later on. So no, there was no blasphemy. He was just simply saying that, don't let people, use the scriptures of the Quran to try to convince you not to vote for me.
Outside the courthouse, militant Muslims demand conviction, while Purnama's supporters defend the Christian leader's innocence.
He never wants to insult any other religion. He wouldn't tolerate any action against his country and his people.
Some fear the trial signals a rapidly growing Islamic militancy in the country of 250 million. Christians represent less than 10% of the population here. According to Indonesia's constitution, freedom of religion is well protected nationwide. However, militant Muslim groups often take violent and legal action against Christians and churches. Purnama's blasphemy trial resumes next week and could last beyond the February election. If elected, Purnama would continue as governor unless convicted of those blasphemy charges. What should Christians pray?
Pray for Ahok to continue to share his heart, and pray so that this trial can't be manipulated by the radical Muslim minority, and that true justice will be done.
Gary Lane, CBN News.
There's a lot at stake with this trial, particularly for Indonesia, but also for the world. For Indonesia, what's at stake is their rights to free speech, to an open democracy, to open elections, to freedom of religion. All of these things are at stake here. And what the comment had to do with is there's a verse in the Quran that says Muslims shouldn't be ruled by non-Muslims. That's a verse you don't often hear quoted, but it was being quoted in this election as a reason not to vote for a Christian for governor of the province that includes the city of Jakarta. So that's what is at stake. And he said, don't let them fool you. The Quran doesn't really say that. You can be a Muslim and have non-Muslim elected officials. It's okay to vote for a Christian. But the minority is coming very violently here, and his attorney is saying we should not have a trial by a mob. And what they're threatening is to have some kind of violence and rioting if he's not convicted and sent away to prison. Well, this underlines what it's like to live under Sharia law. And can you truly have democratic freedoms at the same time? The only two democracies in the world that are Muslim, one is Indonesia, the other one's Turkey. Turkey is quickly moving away from democracy and into some kind of dictatorship. So there's a lot at stake. Can Islam and democracy coexist side by side? Can you truly have freedom of speech, free elections, and freedom of religion? And we need to underline there's a deep chasm between Judaism, Christianity, and Islam on how you govern yourself. And here's what President Obama said back in the UN in 2012. And it's interesting that he sort of equates it. And he says the future must not belong to those who slander the prophet of Islam. So he's saying we can't have any kind of slander. We can't have any kind of blasphemy against Islam. He knows full well what that means. That means people go to prison, people get killed. That's what happens under Sharia law if you dare to do those things. But then he adds to it, to be credible, those who condemn that slander must also condemn the hate we see in the images of Jesus Christ that are desecrated, or the churches that are destroyed, or the Holocaust that is denied. But let me point out, there's a big difference when you blaspheme Christianity or blaspheme Judaism or are a Holocaust denier. You're not going to get tried for that. You're certainly not going to get killed for it. You're not going to be persecuted for it. But if you dare to take on the Quran, if you dare to take on Muhammad, well, watch out. If you're under Sharia law, what is currently happening in Indonesia could happen to you. Well, here at home, President-elect Donald Trump has named his nominee for U.S. Ambassador to Israel. And mark my words, there are going to be some big changes with this ambassador. Charlene Aaron has that story from the CBN Newsroom. Charlene?
That's right. Trump made that announcement, Gordon, as he continued his thank you tour, this time in the key swing state of Pennsylvania, where Trump won a surprising victory on his way to the White House. Mark Martin has the story.
Speaking in Hershey, Pennsylvania, Trump thanked voters for making him the first Republican presidential candidate to win the state since 1988.
Thank you to the different places where we won, swing states mostly, but different places that we won. And by the way, we won in a landslide. This was a landslide victory.
Trump's thank you tour continues tonight in Florida and concludes Saturday in Alabama. His tour comes as White House officials call it a fact that Russian hacking assisted Trump's campaign against his Democratic rival Hillary Clinton. Obama administration officials like Press Secretary Josh Earnest also say Trump must have been aware of Russia's interference. Trump criticized Earnest in Pennsylvania.
Although this foolish guy, Josh Earnest, I don't know if he's talking to President Obama. You know, having the right press secretary is so important because he is so bad the way he delivers a message. He can deliver a positive message and it sounds bad.
Trump's supporters say the outrage about Russia on the part of Democrats is really a plan to discredit his election victory. Critics say Russia did some hacking, but there's no conclusive evidence they were trying to help Trump or hurt Clinton. Meanwhile, Trump is making some of his final choices for his administration team. He nominated David Friedman, a bankruptcy attorney, as his ambassador to Israel. Friedman served as one of Trump's main advisors on American-Israeli relations during the campaign. He questions the need for the Palestinians to have their own state, and his appointment could lead to a Trump decision to move the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Former Israeli Finance Minister Yair Lapid says Trump's pledge to move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem is an excellent idea.
It's about time. We are sitting now in Israel's capital.
Mark Martin, CBN News.
A federal jury in South Carolina has convicted Dylan Roof for the hate crime of murdering 9 black people in a Charleston church last year. He will return to court January 3rd to hear his sentence. Survivor Felicia Sanders says even though she suffered, she still wears a smile on her face.
I wear a smile, and the reason I wear the smile because if you look at the pictures of all 9, they all wore a beautiful smile. So even though I've been through all that I've been through, I still wear a smile.
The jury will reconvene next month to decide if Dylan Roof will face life in prison or a death sentence for the massacre at the Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church. Roof will be his own attorney at the next phase of the trial. He fired his attorneys Thursday. They say he doesn't want them showing embarrassing evidence that could spare his life. And a Virginia pastor is working to bring life back to his community by introducing them to Christ. One problem, the people there don't have a very positive image of the church. As Caitlin Burke shows us, he's partnering with CBN to improve that image by bringing his neighborhood together.
Times change, but sadly, institutions often stay the same. That's why people living around Park Place Methodist Church in Norfolk, Virginia, haven't always felt welcome there.
The tradition of this church has been very formal, and we have an informal community that has moved around the church. And so, unfortunately, we have a generation that has become estranged to Christianity and estranged to the church thereby.
Over the weekend, Pastor Joe McDaniel partnered with CBN and several other sponsors to throw a hip-hop birthday party for Jesus, inviting all of their neighbors to attend.
We're going to give out a lot of gifts. We're going to give out food. But most importantly, we're going to celebrate the birth of our Lord.
Park Place Ministries hopes that events like this one will help bridge the gap between the church and the community.
When we find Christianity in various parts of the world, we find crime rates are low. We find marriages are doing better. We find that the family is stronger. So in theory, where Christ is, we have a stronger community. And so the idea is to put Christ into the community and rid ourselves of a lot of the problems that we have here in this community.
The hip-hop party also allowed Park Place Ministries to get a better understanding of their community's needs and tell them about new outreach programs.
Our challenge is to meet them where they are, first of all, and to, little by little, with the help of partners, and most of all, the help of God, to get them where they need to be.
So there's always good to have a church in the community that is willing to give back to the community, keep kids happy, keep them off the street, keep them out of a lot of things that they could be doing.
CBN donated 50 food baskets, as well as 300 gift bags and several other prizes. The ministry also plans to continue to partner with Park Place Ministries as it works to bring Christ to the local community. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Norfolk, Virginia.
And 15 to 20 people who attended that event came forward to receive Jesus, and nearly 20 people registered to participate in upcoming educational programs. Gordon?
That's a wonderful program, a wonderful thing for the church to be known for blessing the community that we're in. And I'm very proud to be a part of this.